Thank you for joining me for this month's virtual Curators Tour. I'm Jenna Gilly, Associate Curator of Exhibitions at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art, and I'll be your tour guide. Today we will be exploring the paintings of Gabriela Gonzalez Dellosso, a retrospective, curated by Amanda Shepard, Vice President and COO, and is supported by the PNC Foundation and the Edward D. and Ione R. Foundation. The narrative realism of Gabriela Gonzalez Dellosso tells layered stories through her command of the human figure. Female artists whose legacies are undervalued by the authors of art history, solitary brides bedecked in their finery, and clowns in contemplative moments. In many of these pieces, the artist is the model, uniting her life, work, and legacy with those she portrays. In this major retrospective, the first for the artist, works from every stage of her 30-year career are featured. Dellosso exhibits her range of skill and interest in a variety of media, with formal portraits and still lifes in oil, works on paper in the tradition of illuminated manuscript, and immense realist paintings that border the genre of surrealist dreamscape. Beginning our tour is two subjects which have held a long fascination for the artist: Harlequins and brides. Known at once by their attire, harlequins, or clowns, and brides both present technical and compositional challenges, as the patterns and pleats of a clown's costume or the sheer tulle of a bride's resplendent gown would test the endurance of even the most disciplined realism painter. Both figures, too, are known for how they relate to another, and yet are often depicted by Dellosso in solitude. In these compositions, Dellosso uses the subtlety of body language, dramatic lighting, and details of costuming to convey the depth of feeling in each person. Here in The Red Shoes, a bride is captured alone on a couch, resplendent in her full wedding attire. Dellosso's expertise in realism is demonstrated in the gown's intricate lace details, featuring flecks of blue and purple on the bodice to mimic the glint of sequins. At the bride's feet lie a pair of red shoes, fresh out of a United States Postal Service box. This detail injects the piece, traditional in its style and subject matter, with a contemporary feel. But perhaps the most interesting characteristic of this work is Dellosso's subject. Her downcast, neutral expression encourages the viewer to wonder when this scene is taking place. Is the bride enjoying a quiet moment of silence before the wedding? Is this a fitting to make sure everything is perfect for the big day? Or did an issue arise, leaving the young woman alone when she was supposed to be joined with another? The Hans Christian Andersen tale of The Red Shoes, which speaks to the dangers of vanity, may suggest a darker undertone to this picture. Dellosso allows the viewer to apply their own experience to the painting to draw a conclusion to the story, a technique that she would later place herself at the center of to make her work more personal. Our second subject is the harlequin, who usually is either loved or hated. Dellosso falls into the first group. She says, "I am fascinated by their unapologetic presence. I see endless parallels between the clown and human nature. Like us, they embody both tragedy and comedy. The world is both tragedy and comedy. I cannot ask for a more perfect subject." Dellosso sees clowns as both theatrical and mysterious, always concealed behind makeup, yet emotive to an extreme degree while performing. Their get-up and performance are always for others' amusement, yet in her portraits, like the bride, they are depicted alone. Here we have Harlequin, which is an example of the artist's early work with the subject. A life-size clown is depicted in a classic contrapposto stance, with weight on one hip, stepping slightly forward, giving fluidity to a static standing pose. They offer us, the viewer, a small yellow rose, yet again their expression remains impassive. Do you think this clown is happy or sad? Look at the background. It appears bits of trash are scattered around. Where do you think this image takes place? And what could that tell us about the subject? Presented in the gallery is also the costume used by the artist as reference. As most of her work depicts unusual characters or past time periods, Dellosso is constantly scavenging for props at thrift shops, costume warehouses, and auctions. When she can't find, or as was often in her early career, afford a piece, she makes the garment herself, sometimes enlisting the sewing skills of her mother. This is one such piece, consisting of materials that could be found cheaply at a local craft store, including satin, ruffled lace, metal buttons, and pom-pom trim. An avenue into Gabriela's famed self-portraits is her connection to her family and past female artists. This next painting pays tribute to the woman in her family, with her mother standing in the center and two relatives beside her. Dellosso's mother is from Ecuador and her father is from Cuba, so the immigrant's perspective is near to her. For her father, leaving Cuba was a matter of escaping communism for the freedom of America. Both her parents saw America as the opportunity they desired for their family. Her mother, Alexandra, holds a heavy basket of glasses nestled among American flags. Like glass, Dellosso sees the American flag as fragile, a symbol of a nation that must be cared for. The classical column on the left symbolizes politics and tradition, while the red and blue balloons on the right suggest a celebration. Through these three women, Dellosso came to be, both as a person and as an American. Next is another example of Dellosso's influences playing a key part in the artist's practice. The Homage Ode series, a departure from Gabriela's rich oil paintings and ethereal pastels, illustrates her love of narrative in the form of illuminated manuscript. This centuries-old lettering method, with its roots in medieval European monasteries, enlivened the written word with delicate illustrations, letterform flourishes, and gold detailing, all by hand. In fact, for a manuscript to be truly illuminated, from the Latin illuminare, which means lighted up, it had to be decorated with real gold, included here in the form of gold leaf. For Dellosso, illuminated manuscripts are the perfect setting for telling the stories of artists she admires. Each homage ode includes a poem by Dellosso and is composed like a page in a book, with scenes from the artists' lives and small replications of their most famous works. Interestingly, Dellosso applies this medieval art form to suit the style of more modern artists. Here Dellosso pays tribute to 18th century painter Adelaide Labille-Guiard, who, as a recently elected academician, tried to increase the number of females who were enrolled and promote their gifts and their standing within the academy. The floral background mimics the intricate patterns found on wallpaper and textiles in Labille-Guiard's classical era. Our final painting was completed just in time for this exhibition, and is the culmination of Dellosso's interest in realism, history, and honoring those who came before her, particularly important women. An homage to surrealist artist, Dellosso composed this scene of foreboding and uncomfortable anticipation with a magnitude of references. Instantly recognizable for many is Frida Kahlo, likely smoking in the center. On the far left sits Lenora Carrington, whose pose is based off of her self-portrait. Second from left is Kay Sage, whose work often included barren landscapes of architecture and ghostly drapery. Second from right is Remedios Varo, who declared that the dream world and the real world are the same, and often expressed her interest in mysticism through dreamlike scenes. On the far right is Dorothea Tanning, whose 1942 painting Birthday shows the artist draped in a gown with a skirt of root-like tendrils that are actually human figures. The artist, whose faces are Dellosso's, gather around a centerpiece of white heels overturned to resemble a roast chicken, after Merritt Oppenheim's famous absurdist object, My Nurse. And finally, the entire composition is based on Lottie Lasserstein's Evening over Potsdam, 1930, a work whose 5 figures gather on a balcony overlooking the German city around a table of cut pears with a dog at their feet. Their troubled faces reflect their anxiety over the future of the Weimar Republic as the Nazis rose to power. Perhaps these women too are troubled by the future of their world. Thank you for joining me for this virtual Curators tour. If you would like to see more of Dellosso's beautiful work, we encourage you to see the paintings of Gabriela Gonzalez Dellosso, a retrospective, in person before it closes on July 14th.